welcome to the Representation Matters, a conversation with people of color in public service. I am Sharima Young, co-founder and former chair of the Center Women's Leadership Coalition, a subcommittee of the Community Diversity Group. We are delighted to have you join us for this very important conversation. We know many of you have many questions, and we may ask that you submit your questions in the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen. This is a recorded webinar, and a link to the recording will be available on CNET. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for this discussion, Leslie Lang. Leslie Lang is the founder of Spheres of Influence, LLC, also serves as a director of adult learner programs and services for the Pennsylvania State University. She has been active in state college communities, serving as past president of the Forum on Black Affairs, chair of 3 diversity conferences for the Community Diversity Group, founding member of the Racial Unity Network. She works with the Pennsylvania Prison Society, providing a parenting program at CCCF. She's also AAUW member and a proud parent who also advocates in the local school district. Leslie's advocacy and activism within the campus and the community seeks to inspire and engage everyone in playing an active role in reforming policies and practices that impact us daily. I'm sure that you can see that this woman is quite busy. Leslie, welcome. It's our pleasure to have you moderate for us this afternoon, and I turn it over to you to introduce our panelists.
Thank you, Sharima, and thank you to the Community Diversity Group. And this was a lovely opportunity, and I'm looking forward to it immensely today. The Spheres of Influence is proud to provide transformative solutions and innovative programming pertaining to the arts and entertainment, workplace, education, government, religion, family, and community, inspiring change through facilitated dialogues and civic engagement. And I thank you all for allowing me to moderate Representation Matters. Kamala Harris became the first female vice president in America's history. I'm telling you, Harris's appointment is historical on so many levels, and it's really meaningful to me. She breaks the glass ceiling in politics for women in the executive branch, but she too, like me, is the daughter of Jamaican parents and Indian parents. And I can't even imagine that in 2016, she was the second Black woman ever elected to Senate. Representation matters then and now. Our little girls get to see the possibilities, the why. Civic engagement is a group activity addressing issues of public concern. Civic engagement allows communities and individuals to work together in both political and non-political actions to protect our public values and to create change in our community. Today, we have 4 fabulous trailblazing panelists who are using their influence in local government. We have Shannon Holliday. She relocated from New Orleans. She's a mother of 3 and grandmother of 1. She currently works in the Associate Dean's Office in Eberly College of Science at Penn State. She dedicates her weekends to serving seniors at the Village and the Harmony retirement communities. And her most recent accomplishments include completing Leadership Center County, the class of 2020. She serves on State College Community Land and Trust Outreach and Development Committees, the Human Relations Advisory Council to the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, the Pine Grove Mills Small Area Planning Advisory Board, and most notably, serves on Ferguson Township Planning Commission. So we're going to welcome Shannon. And next we have Pamela Robb. She was raised in Brooklyn, New York, and Camden, New Jersey, and now she is a State College resident for the past 5 years. Pam is a veteran of the United States Army, specializing in telecommunications and human relations, and we thank her for her service. She was a community organizer in New Jersey, a former member of the Zoning Board of Adjustments, overseeing community development projects in South Jersey. She was a 21-year member of the American Red Cross Disaster Relief and Volunteer Service member and served as a police chaplain. Currently, she's one of our newest members in the Hatton Township Board of Supervisors and recently appointed to their vice chair for the board of 2021. Miss Rob, oh, you have numerous commendations and awards and medals and dedication for serving others, including the Military Medal of Honor and the New Jersey Government County Medal and the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Freedom Medal. We welcome you to the panel today. Also with us today is Prasenjit Mitra, who emigrated to the U.S. in 1993 and was naturalized as a U.S. citizen in 2005. He is the first person of color to be elected a supervisor in Ferguson Township in 2020 on the Democratic platform, advocating for environmental and social justice. A resident of Center County for 17 years, he also is a member of the Spring Creek Watershed Commission, the Pennsylvania Governor Wolf's Upper Middle Susquehanna Resource Regional Committee. He works at Penn State as Associate Dean for Research and a professor in information sciences, and his research interests are in artificial intelligence and natural language processing. Welcome, Prasenjit. Our fourth panelist, Charles Dumas. He was the first African American professor emeritus in the School of Theater at Penn State, a Fulbright Fellow at Stellenbosch University in South Africa. He is a community and political activist. He was serving and he has been marching since 1963 on the March on Washington and a project director during Mississippi Freedom Summer of 1964. Charles was named the Democratic Party's nominee for the U.S. House Representatives in 2012 and for our 5th District in Pennsylvania. Charles is also a writer, an actor, and a director who has appeared or directed or written over 200 plays, films, and television shows. He was awarded an Ensemble Emmy for Separate but Equal and was named the Best Actor of Hollywood Beverly Hills NAACP. He is also a recipient of the Pennsylvania Council of the Arts Grant for Playwriting. He currently writes a weekly column for our Center Daily Times called Under the Baobab. Welcome, Charles. Welcome to you all. Let's get down to business because representation matters. The role of effective local governments provides for the overall quality of life for the people who reside in each community. Our local municipalities deliver a broad range of services in relation to roads, traffic, planning, housing, economic community development, parks and recreation, fire services, and a host of other services. Organizationally, there are four main types of local government. We have our county government, we have the municipalities of the cities and the towns, we have special districts, and we have our school district. In light of the numerous negative consequences that arise when diversity is missing, this births a sense of duty in each of us to be trailblazers so that future generations can identify with us and become empowered to be the change we need in our world. Representation matters so that the full story can be told and so that we don't live a one-sided story. So panelists, let's hear your opening statements. Please share with us your story and what prompted you to undertake public service in Center County. Shannon, would you begin?
It is my absolute pleasure. And I would like to thank both Sharima and yourself, Leslie, and all of the staff and people who helped to put this event together for honoring me with the privilege of being here right now for this amazing event. Once again, I'm Shannon Holliday. I'm a native of New Orleans, Louisiana, and I've lived in Center County now in Happy Valley specifically for almost 15 years. I drifted ashore not long after Hurricane Katrina, and as a proud mother of three daughters who are now college age and one who's soon to be graduating from Penn State, it is absolutely my joy and pleasure to serve in a volunteer capacity in Happy Valley. I was initially on a quest to collaborate with like-minded individuals to work together to pass a cost of living increase after having a different type of experience while working for an employer where I experienced discrimination and was denied a pay raise. The thing that I'm happy about is that I didn't make the initiative all about me, but I thought about others who may also have experienced or may have been experiencing the same thing that I was experiencing. I'm sure we could all use a little quicker picker upper as far as a pay raise, you know, a cost of living increase rather, and the pay raise. We experienced that in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, and after speaking with different people in Happy Valley, I was informed that it had been a number of years before, since the last time, I'm sorry, that, you know, that a cost of living increase had been rendered to the local to the residents here. And so in my quest to try to see how I can go about obtaining this collaborative effort, achieving this collaborative effort, I was introduced through the community diversity group by attending one of their events that they had, a cultural event that they hosted, where they welcomed people from the community to attend an evening event where we sat around and we just networked and mingled with individuals, and we had an opportunity to find out what it is that each other, you know, that everyone would like to do, and what endeavors we would like to pursue and such that would be beneficial to the community. And while at that event, I was introduced to Miss Sharima Young. I was informed about the authorities, boards, and commissions and committees that's here in Center County. And I was encouraged by her and our former mayor, Elizabeth Gorham, to consider looking through the various committees to see where I might be able to, you know, connect and see what I could, you know, hopefully contribute. And in doing so, I went through the process and filled out the application. Very easy, very simple. And lo and behold, out of the choices that I selected, I had the pleasure and honor of being appointed to serve as an alternate representative on the Ferguson Township Planning Commission. It is with great honor that I serve in that capacity as the only African American, I'll say. We do have, I'm not the only person of color, because since that time, I've been, I have transitioned to being a core member now, and we since have a member who's come on board with us, and she now serves as an alternate, and my friend Chen.
Yes, thank you, Jen.
She's with us. She's with us, and I'm very happy to be on that commission with her and a plethora, you know, of other people who are really focused on the needs of our community. As it relates to my endeavors, the Women's Empowerment Luncheon that was given. It's given twice a year, both in spring and in the fall. I was able to also connect with women who were interested and eager to learn about how they too can contribute to our community and serve in a capacity of government roles. It was through that luncheon as well that I obtained a bit more, you know, even more knowledge about how I can be of service. Because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. Asking ourselves, how can we contribute to our community, and to being instrumental in providing resources to others in our community for how they can contribute or utilize the resources available through these various organizations. So I've been on the Ferguson Township Planning Commission now for about, I think, going on 3 years now. And I was also segued to being able to serve on the State College Community Land Trust, on the Outreach and Development Committee, and the other things that you've heard Leslie introduce. In addition to those things that you've heard her mention, I am also happy and elated to have completed the Community Leadership Development Training Program through Leadership Center County, where I met even more people who are just as eager to and who are already instrumental within their own right and serving in various capacities as the cohort of the class of 2020. So my continual desire is to be able to experience opportunities while also being able to create opportunities for other people, because that's what it's all about. Kind of a blessed to be a blessing kind of thing. And
Absolutely.
so I definitely encourage everyone who's attending today to just glean as much as you can from the panelists and absorb the information. And feel free to reach out to us so that we can be able to provide you with even more information so that you too can be a part of helping our community to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. And let's hear Pam's opening statement now.
I too want to thank you and for putting this panel together and just getting the word out. So good morning, everyone. It is an honor to be on this distinguished panel to share my experiences to serving as a person of color in public office. My life has always been about service to my community and to my country. That service has always been about activism, public service, military service, or just being a good neighbor. My philosophy is your blessing comes from caring for others, sharing your gifts, and giving back. Is that my opening statement? Yes. If you want me to proceed, I can, but I think we just need to hear from our other panelists on what our opening statement to our community and those that are listening.
Correct. Thank you so much, Pam. Prasenjit, would you share your opening statement with us?
Yes, I would thank you everyone for coming here. Even though I cannot see you, I'm so glad that there are 70 people here listening to this. And I would actually ask each one of you to consider running for office. And if you want to see somebody who is a newbie who ran for office, that's me. Because I'll tell you this, there's this League of Conservation Women's Voters, they do this debate. So they asked me for a questionnaire. I had to fill out, okay, where I got my degrees, this, that, so I have some degrees, so I filled those out. Then they said experience, I wrote none, and I sent it in because I hadn't served in public office before. And then they told me, you might want to think about something because this doesn't look good. They actually published it in Central Daily Times. So I was truly a newbie. And why I got involved was because I'm very passionate about social justice and environmental justice and was not happy with the status quo. And I would be an internet troll and fight with people saying, hey, this needs to happen. And then somebody made a comment, hey, you should run. I said, well, why would people vote for me? But eventually people did vote for me. And the reason is for the Democratic primary, I thought I would put in my application to run. And if there are other qualified people will vote for them and that'll be fine. But nobody other than I filed for the Democratic primary. And that's how I got in. And then I have 5 more months to actually go knocking door to door and convincing people because the person I ran against had served on the board. So now, so my opening statement is, if I could do it, so can you. All you need to do is to have the passion. And one of the reasons I wanted to do is because I was sort of tired telling my daughter that, oh, you should do this and so on and so forth. I said, well, I mean, even though it's for a small office, I will run and I will try to make change. And there are 2 openings on Ferguson Township Board. And if you want to run, I will help you figure out the process. It's not that hard and we can do it together. So that's my opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you, President Jet. And let's hear from Charles. Charles, what's your opening statement to share with us?
Sure. First of all, thank you for the honor of being asked to be on this distinguished panel and to be able to speak to my brothers and sisters out there in the community. I came into State College in '95, but that didn't start my participation in terms of community activities. As you mentioned in your introduction, all my life I've been part of a social justice process going all the way back to the '60s when I was a teenager. So that it was natural to come here as an academic. And then once I realized I was going to be here for a while, to become involved in what was going on in the community. When I came in the late '90s, there were very few. Actually, there were no, let me just say no, there were no Black folks who are involved in the community. I would go to the Democratic Party meetings. I'm a lifelong Democrat. And, it would be me and my wife. And every now and then somebody would show up, but mostly it was just me and her. Uh, I got involved because it is essential for all of us to become involved in the communities that we live in. It's not just a matter of letting other folks do it. And even as academics, we have a tendency to kind of go be sort of in a pass-through mentality. But if you're going to pass through, you might as well do something while you're passing through. Might as well do something good. So I came into the theater department at Penn State. Make little things shorter. I ran for Congress. Didn't win, but I got more votes than anybody had in 20-something years. And in the old 5th district, which has now been split up into 2 other districts, I got more than anybody has since. I also was the first chair of the Human Relations Commission for the Borough of State College, and then later I was on the Planning Commission. Both of those instances, I was the first person of color to be involved in what we call the ABCs. Uh, Again, it was about the process of interacting within the community that you are in. A lot of us see the communities that we're in as being the school, Penn State University, or the job, but the communities we're in also include the neighborhoods that we live in. It's our neighbors. It's the people that we interact with at the grocery store. It's the people that we go and see at the theaters and the movies. And it's important for there to be representation, diverse representation in those places. And the only way that's going to happen, oh, forgot one more thing, the Martin Luther King Committee. And I would love to talk about that a little bit later, about how the Martin Luther King Square came into being. And it came into being because people got involved. So that's pretty much it. I'll leave the rest of it for questions. And I'm proud to stand on the shoulders of the people who went before us and made it possible for us to be here and to do what we do. And thank you, brothers and sisters.
Indeed, it's fabulous to hear the difference in your opening statements, because the pursuit of pay equity, the higher calling to service, being a novice and being put on the spot and not necessarily having all the answers, or can't even speak to why you really want to run at the time that you know there's a need to run, and even having been an activist for decades, still calls all of us to get involved and to get into that good trouble together and to do something good in order to interact with our communities, our neighbors. So I thank you for those wonderful statements. I know that there continues to be an unequal representation, and it's pervasive in the United States. White, wealthy people are more likely to serve in local capacity, and they make decisions that are more often in line with the concerns and preferences of white and wealthier residents rather than those of people of color or poorer residents. This is reflected in our zoning, our business, our chains. They're represented in our townships, our ownerships, and even the construction designs and the decisions that we make. So my question to the panelists right now is, What has been your personal experience as the only person of color serving and echoing your voice in local government? And how did you overcome any doubts or insecurities you may have had while you served? Who would like to answer that question?
Yeah, I can take a stab at it. So I think there are various facets of um, being a person. So I'm a person of color, but I'm also middle class. So being a person of color and having economic difficulties perhaps is in a different space. So when I went in and I started serving, people were very helpful. But what you see is that their worldview and your worldview is different. And the things that I see as problems, and I think, it's obvious, there is a problem, but they don't see it that way. And so what happens is then you have to go out and you have to build the understanding and you talk to them. And when I started serving, people told me, okay, that's your agenda. You'll possibly get to only 10% of that in 4 years. And I'm like, okay, I'm fine. So it takes time to build up this understanding within the board that I'm serving. And the two things that I mentioned, environmental justice and social justice, I found it's a much lighter lift for environmental justice. I'm not saying that we are there, but there is a broad consensus and understanding that climate change is a problem. There are issues. Poorer people are affected more. So the lifting was lighter there. With respect to social justice, it's much harder. And economic justice, I initially introduced a bill or an ordinance to try to get our Ferguson Township to pay everyone that we are hiring $15 an hour. And I thought that's sort of, okay, we are a reasonably expensive place, or at least not that cheap. And I got numbers from some U.S. Department of Labor or some site which shows how much you need to make if you have two kids in order to be just at poverty level or above. And that was like $14.50 and $15.50 depending upon the number of kids you have. The questions that came up was, well, there's an administrative burden to this. We have to check all our subcontractors, this and that. And then I did not. So essentially everything becomes, can I get 3 votes out of 5? So the art of politics is the art of wielding power. And I'm working to get 3 votes. Myself is 1, so I need 2 more on each of these issues. And that becomes hard when somebody sees the world differently than I do. It's a work in progress, but that is also why we need more people of color, more people who have suffered economic injustice to come and serve and share their worldview so that we can make the change.
Absolutely. That's a great experience to share with everyone. It's not always easy when people perceive you have an agenda, even if it is economic or social or environmental. So building consensus is important. I will recognize Pam and then Charles.
I'm going to piggyback on the other avenue where in Patton Township is completely different from that. The Board of Supervisors are all on the same wavelength of seeing who you are and not just your color. During my time on Patton Township Board of Supervisor, I have not had an experience with my race or gender has been challenged by the group. The experience where the race and gender has not been challenged. That's not to say that we haven't had difficult conversations on the board. Given the national climate and the current decisions about policing communities, policing policies, managing the pandemic, and within affordable housing. All topics have the potential of being contentious or divisive. To date, our conversations have been conducted with respect and a willingness to listen, which includes when I am making a point about the difference of people of color's perspective and actions and policies different from the majority. Our board is outstanding as far as seeing me as a person, first of all, listening to my ideas, and we discussed respectfully. I have not seen that across the board in the other most townships. There is a true respect at Patton Township, and I have to applaud them that they are unique. They are truly unique, down from the township manager, police chief, our board chair. Betsy Whitman, who just jumped off, is the former chair, and one of my sponsors who believed in me, along with Elizabeth Gorham and the Community Diversity Group. But I would be amiss to say, without Sharima Young, I don't know where we will all be. So thank you to all of you. But to those of you who are listening, it's not, the situation is not painted with one brush. And don't think I don't understand that there is a problem out there, because on all our committees, we're usually one or two of us of color who sit on the committees, the boards, but we have to realize we have to work together in order, it's not just a one person, it's a team. That working together, we can make changes. We have made changes. For the people on this panel, they know we are the pioneers that are stepping out, and we are making a difference.
Yes.
People are listening. And Charles, thank you for being another pioneer that we're stepping on your shoulders to be trailblazers and making a difference. So I just hope for those that are listening, please come out to the committees, learn about them, be a part of the answer, not just asking questions, be a part of making the change. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Yes, Charles.
Yeah, I'm gonna, that's one of the problems of being kind of elderly, is you have a different kind of perspective. And my perspective is, it is hard as hell being the only Black person in the room, especially if you are living in a situation that has been, the building that has been erected on foundations of white supremacy. Because people don't know. I mean, one of the things about people who are living in white supremacy, white people who are living in white supremacy, is they don't know that they're living in it. They assume that what they're living in is normal, that it's regular. And so one of the things that they do is that they act out of what they think is a norm, but which we know as people of color and of people who are allies is the word. I think it's partners. It's our brothers and sisters who've been out there on the line with, I'm married to one of them, Irish woman of color, she calls herself, So that if we are going through that, you have to stand there and you have to represent, or you have to fold. Let's face it, some people who are people of color aren't necessarily acting in the best interest of other people of color, they're acting in their own best interest, particularly if you're around something like an academic institution like Penn State. You're trying to get tenure, you're trying to move ahead, you're trying to keep your job going. So it's tough. What you have to, what I think saves you in this process is if you're living and functioning and having to live and function in an institution based on white supremacy, is that you're not alone. You're not alone. There are all of those people who came before, who made it so that you could get in that door, who you could sit at that table. There are all of those people who sacrificed their lives, their livelihoods, their careers, so that we could all get ahead. And you're not alone because there are other people in the community. You have to find them out. It used to be, when I first came back in 95, 96, you know, everybody knew everybody. I mean, there was FOBA and there was the African American Studies Department, and we all came to the same place. We knew, everybody knew everybody's name and was in everybody's business, you know, and that was a good thing. You smiled when you went by, you asked, you inquired into how the family's doing. You know, you inquired in terms of how the kids are doing, because we were part of all the same family. And that was not just all Black people. It was all Black people, but it was also other people who were involved in that. So I'm saying, you got to remember that you're not alone. There are people whose shoulders you stand on. There are people out there in the community. And the last group are the people who come after you. We would not be where we are if there weren't people who sacrificed their lives and their livelihoods and their careers to make sure that we had an opportunity to be where we are. And we have to make the same kind of sacrifice for people who are coming after.
Absolutely. Thank you. That was fabulous. I think that's really important to hear all of those things. We have to learn to build consensus. We have to know that even when people are acting out of what they think is the best point of view, sometimes that norm only applies to them. And it's hard as hell to be the only one. That's why we're making this plea that representation matters, because we are not alone in the community and there are pockets of us. And if we stand together, we can be that change that we'd like to see in the world. So I think we've had a wonderful discussion about those challenges. And I want to know, what support did you find? And even in your wonderful supportive environment, Pam, perhaps you'll tell us, how did you prepare? And what training and support or mentorship was provided to you to be ready to be on the Board of Supervisors?
Um, my township has been very supportive with manuals, with the documentation, with policies, sending me to training, and even through my training, um, sponsoring me to attend conferences and workshops that for newly elected and appointed officials. But most of all, my support unit were the board members, being very supportive, my township manager and the police chief. For any questions at any time, I can pick up the phone. They're there, they're willing to give me resources so I can do my job in the manner of serving the public. And I appreciate that tremendously.
Thank you. Anyone else receive support or training on their commissions or their
Yeah,
committees?
I could throw in some names most people don't know, like Larry Young and you know, folks who were here when I got here, who were in the Penn State administration. There was a handful of folks who had walked the burning coals before me and showed me how to get through. Uh, Again, going back to being the only person, I was the first and only African American faculty member in the School of Theater. And so I couldn't find, I mean, there are good people in the School of Theater, don't get me wrong. There were people who asked me to come and who were very supportive, but they didn't understand. I remember an interesting story is a man who was my mentor in the School of Theater. And one of the things I asked him was, you know, where can I get a haircut? You know, it's about 1996. Where can I get a haircut? And he didn't understand that. He thought I was, you know, messing with him some kind of way. What do you mean, where can you get a hair? You go to the barber. I said, no, you understand. Where can I get a haircut? You know, and you know, and for a long time I was going to Altoona to get a haircut. So that those kinds of things those kinds of things. I always tell the young African American, particularly folks who come after me, one of the things you got to do is you got to get out of town on a regular basis. You got to get out of town. You got to go somewhere. You got to go to Philly. You got to go to Elton. You got to go to New York. You got to go to a community. You have to go somewhere, because if you stay here, it wears at you. It's like the water, you know, in a water torture test. It's going to be dripping on your head. You got to get with some folks who understand where you're coming from, where you don't have to defend everything you have to say, where you don't have to be on guard against white supremacy all the time. So you need a place to get away. But there were people who were out there in that community, most of whom have either passed on or moved on. And fortunately, I'm sort of in that position now. But at the same time, there are people who are supportive, and you got to seek them out. And you got to use your wisdom to be able to sniff out who's a friend and who ain't a friend. Because there's a whole bunch of people who look like friends who not necessarily are friends. You know, but those of us who got a little gray out here understand that. You know, you gotta make sure that you can understand, you know, who's a friend and who's not.
We do. I think I'm going to pause for just a moment because I think there are two questions in the chat, Sharima, in the Q&A. I mean, not the chat, Q&A.
Yes, there are, Leslie. Our first question is, when policymaking and developing community programs, what kind of action/thought processes should we keep in mind to make sure it's inclusive, especially for um, uh, BIPOC communities, so the people of color in our community? Anybody can take that one.
What should we keep in mind is what you're saying. Uh-huh.
So when we're looking at policy making and developing community programs, what sort of processes or thoughts should we be keeping in mind?
I'm gonna make one quote, then I'm gonna get off. It's real simple. You got to stay hopeful. You got to stay optimistic. You know, as King said, that the arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Stay hopeful. Stay optimistic. It may not happen now, but it's gonna happen.
Would also add that it's important to keep in mind the demographics that are going to, you know, of the that the community consists of, right? Um, as as Mr. Mitra said, you know, you have to consider the economic aspects of, you know, the how the policy would impact underserved and marginalized people. Even though on the Ferguson Township Planning Commission, we're not the ones who make the rules, but we are the ones who review the initiatives that people desire to have established in the township. So we're looking at contracts from developers. We're looking at landowners who may want to do expansion. We're looking at ordinances that have been passed to us to make recommendations on, and we're reviewing all of this. And what we keep in mind as a body of people on the commission, which I have to say, like Pam mentioned, I too work with a body of people who are who I have never felt, I've never been made to feel that they were being condescending. They're always more than willing to answer questions that I have. And my questions that I've asked has always been on the behalf of the community and others. Whether it's a question I'm asking for Shannon, or whether it's a question I'm asking for someone out there, an audience member who's watching CNET, who may have a question that they haven't voiced. So I think that that's important to keep in mind as well when putting policies in place, understanding who's all involved, who it will impact, the various demographics involved in terms of age, economics, and race, ethnicity. I think all of that comes into play, even gender.
I think that's really important. And generally speaking, the thing I like to remind people of is who's not at the table when you're considering making the policy. That's
Exactly.
the first start of the discussion you need to come to. And before you make it, that's why those public sessions and public comments are important. So invite us in, even if we're not sitting at your table with you. So thank you. I'm going to move on and ask, because I think we talked about representation being really important. And according to Wikipedia, right? Even though we have such great PR right now and everybody thinks, oh, there's so many Blacks and there's so many progressive people and there's so many people of color, really, not so many. Wikipedia reports 162 African Americans serve in Congress out of 12,348 individuals who have served since 1789. Only 9 have served in the Senate. And the Center for Women in Politics records only 83 women of color have served in the U.S. House of Representatives. And currently, women of color only constitute 9% of the 535 members of Congress. Charles, since you were named the Democratic Party's nominee for the U.S. House of Representatives in 2012, what perspective can you share?
Well, I was named that, but it wasn't the fact that somebody came and tapped me on the shoulder. It was the fact that a whole bunch of people, mostly white people, by the way, matter of fact, all white people, because there was only one other person of color who was part of the campaign, who went out and got petitions signed, gave me some money, not a lot of money, but some money. I ran because it was 2012. It was the mid-year for President Obama. And one of the things that I noticed is that there were 15 counties in the 5th district. And there was a whole lot of people outside of State College and outside of Center County who had some strange ideas about who Obama was. Like, the fact that he wasn't born in the United States, that kind of crap. And there was a whole bunch of misunderstanding about what the brother was trying to do. And I figured, look, there's not a chance I'm going to win. Maybe, I'm going to work to try to win, but I can certainly get out there and uh, talk about his message and articulate his message, not be his spokesperson, but to be out there and talk about the progressive stuff and the good stuff that was going to help probably the primarily white folks outside in those other counties. So I came along and decided to do that because it was my turn. It was somebody's got to get out there, and I can maybe turn a phrase or two and just get out and knock on doors and travel out there in Erie County and Forest County and all those places and talk about what the president was trying to do. I couldn't do that from a local position because local politicians and local officials don't talk about what's happening nationally. Therefore, I had to be in the Congress, knowing that there was very little chance of my winning, but at the same time, it gave me a platform. One of the things is that we were just literally, I got to say this, we were just down in Georgia early in January and watched these sisters, man, the AKAs and Abrams, man. I mean, what they had done to Georgia, I worked in Georgia as a civil rights operative as part of SNCC, and that was a hick town with some folks who hated Black people, who were in control. And these sisters had turned Georgia around. It was probably the most important thing that happened, in the early part of January. People talk about what's going on in the Capitol and all that. Forget that. Understand that there were some Black women primarily, and I was there, so I saw it. It was the Black women who came out and registered 1 million people to vote, that turned not only the place to Biden, but turned 2 incumbent senators, got them out of office, and brought 2 other people. One of them was sitting where Martin Luther King used to preach in Ebenezer. I mean, we're talking about transformative, miraculous, but it wasn't miraculous because somebody tapped them on the shoulder. It was miraculous because they worked their butts off.
Yeah, they did.
And they changed the world. The world we live in now, the only reason we're having these conversations is because of the work that those folks did. And that's all I'm saying. We can do that here.
We can do that here, Charles. And you bring up a really great point about what we can do. And I think the other thing, when you consider who's not at the table, is how can I support those who are willing to be at the table? You mentioned very importantly that when you run for office, you have to get petitions. This is going to be a very challenging season virtually to try and speak to the people and let them know what you're about and to gain the confidence to get the signatures on the ballots. And we're going to talk about that in a little while. But I want to urge our viewers and our attendees to remember that you can give financially and support someone who's running. You can help them gather information and send out social media and tell them and encourage them when they step forward. Yes, Charles.
I just got to say, because I don't know if I get an opportunity the other time, but this is the perfect time to do it. I got to give some props to Elizabeth Gorman, who was the previous mayor. You know, Elizabeth Gorman, when she came into office, I know Elizabeth. I didn't know her that well before she became mayor, but I know her. And Elizabeth came out and made sure that she went to FOBA meetings, made
Yes,
sure
she did.
she went to those places where people were sitting and who were not who were not at the table yet. And she made sure that her presence created the table that people could be at. You know, she was encouraging, and she was, and Pamela mentioned it as well, is that there are people out there. You have to, like I said, friends and not friends. You know, you got to make sure you identify friends, and you identify them by their actions. You identify them by their heart. You can see people's hearts. You know, after a certain time on this planet, you can see their hearts. And Elizabeth had good.
Absolutely.
You know, and
We applaud her and we thank her for running and being a very model citizen and representative. And she also supported many of us in learning more about the process. And she comes to the community diversity group and she's an avid member and she's probably online today. So we send out our shout outs to Elizabeth for supporting all of us too.
one
Pam,
more
did you have
time.
something else you wanted to say?
Yeah, one more, just one real quick one, and that is the Martin Luther King square and the committee didn't start with Black folks. The first time the idea of changing Fraser Square to the Martin Luther King Square came up with a member of the State College borough.
Borough Council, yes, I remember. We thanked him at FOBA.
Peter said it. He
Yes.
said, "Why don't we change that to?" And he was all white, you know, all white folks. And he said, "Let's change it," because he's a man of conscience. And
A
from
man of conscience, and that's
man
important.
of conscience, because they changed the name, and then from there we got the commission, and from there we got all of the stuff that's happened since then.
Absolutely, a willing voice. We talked about being the only voice. It didn't have to be a person of color, but yes, step forward, stand up, and speak out. Pam, you had something to say?
Yes, I just want to piggyback on Charles. For many of us, we stand on the shoulders of those who have paved the way. But presently, I want to give a shout out to Anita Thebes. She has put together an affordable housing task force, which has 19 members on the task force. 9 of them are community. I can't even imagine, remember community stepping up, maybe not 1, 2, 3 on a committee. She has 9 and an 18 panel. Anita, God bless you. We're here for you as you tackle affordable housing here. You have a big task, but you have people there behind you to make it work. So thank you. And to Elizabeth Gorman, you can't, it's so much that this woman has done for so many of us that are sitting on this panel. And God continue to bless you. And we love you for all that you have done and continue to do. So please don't give up on us. Continue to believe in us, and we will make you proud.
Sounds like we have some mentors out there who are helping and encouraging other people to lead in local government. And so I thank you for that shout out to those folks. As we continue to talk about how we're navigating uncomfortable circumstances and overcoming obstacles, I wondered if anyone would like to provide a recommendation for handling resistance to new ideas. I think that's something we all face when we're on public office and university and community committees. Who'd like to go first?
I think it's all about building these relationships in the with your board, with your fellow board members or council members, and it's a slow process. So when and typically, even though we are 5 Democrats at Ferguson Township, we have different priorities and different things that we want to work on. And I've had several conversations with people. So and you mentioned the doubts initially. I think I didn't answer that as much, but initially I was like, oh, I have no clue what I've gotten myself into. And so you have these self-doubts. But like Pam said, at least the manager was very helpful and people on the board were very helpful. And everybody was willing to listen to what I have to say, even though we differ. I had a 2.5-hour conversation with our police chief, which comforted me somewhat, but there are issues that need to be addressed too, which we will work on. Now, with respect to getting things done, it's these relationships that we build on so that initially I get the trust that the other person knows that I am not coming at it to get her or from some other nefarious perspective. It's my true belief, and I'm trying to do what I think is best for the entire community. And even though we might differ in our opinions, and then it takes, slowly understanding the person. So essentially, you're trying to get a person to sign on to what you want to. You slowly figure out, why does this person not see what I see? And you say, oh, this is what this is how they grew up, and this is how I grew up, and this is, and then you give them these stories of people who are in these situations. Do you not think these people should be helped? And they say, yeah, that's not right. Yeah, we should do something. So it's conversation by conversation, and you might not get to the whole bill, but you get little bricks you lay, and you convince people to see at least things from your point of view. And that's how you build consensus. Very important for building consensus, even if you cannot run. When citizens come to our meeting and talk for those 5 minutes, and 5 or 10 of them come and they're talking about a particular issue, the board pays attention to that.
Right, they listen.
Yeah, they listen.
That's
So,
very true.
yeah.
Thank you, Prasenjit. I think, Pam, you have a comment? Unmute.
Yes. My answer to that is, don't be afraid of addressing new ideas, and timing is everything. To bring it at another time, you might have to think about bringing it at another time, but don't forget, don't be afraid to do that. And considering one of your or two of your ideas, to talk to your colleagues, to gauge their level of knowledge and their interests. And lastly, always remember, you need to connect the issue and topic to the things that people care about. Try to communicate the issue to their lives and the well-being of what people want to know and be willing to listen. The key is listening, and you'll see the connection to something that they care about, and they can understand that you understand. You understand and you care about their issues. So we can move forward to resolving or getting an idea on the books. I truly believe other perspectives is another key. We have to listen to people that don't look like us, but we have to listen to people that do look like us and make an initial period of doing action. It's good to talk about it, but it's not until we do action. Just as Charles said, if it wasn't for Stacy, she had a plan, strategy, and she moved on it. But she did not let anybody turn her around. So let us walk on that walk, that we will not be turned around. We will not, we will change, we will make change, and we hear you. But
That's
please.
a familiar refrain. We will not be moved. Yes. So I like that exhortation that you gave us, Pam, to say, be fearless. And to build relationships is what Prasenjit said. Those are very two key things, and to be timely with those topics and ideas. Charles, you have something to add? Unmute, Charles. Unmute, Charles.
I'm unmuted. I found it. There you go. Two things real quick. One historical and one contemporary. Contemporarily, remember that, you know, the practical part of it is that politics works like this. The only way you get a position in politics is you get appointed or you get elected. And if you're going to get elected, you have to, I'm picking up on what my sister Pamela said, is that you got to find the mutual self-interest of everybody. So you got to find what our common ground is, because you are speaking for not just the Black folks and you're not speaking for yourself, you're speaking for all the people who voted for you. And to get appointed, you got to make sure that that leadership understands where you're coming from. The historical piece, when I went to register people to vote along with 1,000 other people back in 1964 in Mississippi, the first thing that happened, literally day one of our registration, Ku Klux Klan came in, kidnapped 3 of our brothers, James Chaney and Andrew Goodman and Michael Swern. 2 of them were white boys, Jewish guys from New York, part of SNCC. James Chaney was a local guy. Took them out, tortured them, and killed them. You know, that night, or the 2 nights later, when we all realized what had happened, because, you know, we had to call in every 6 hours if you were away, we knew what had happened. And we all had decisions to make about whether or not we were going to stay, because it was clear that this was a life and death matter. It was a life and death matter. And brothers and sisters, I am here to tell you as a 75-year-old elder, we are in another life and death matter. I'm not saying that the Klan is out there lynching people, but that's not a form of resistance that's not yet put to bed, as we just found out on what was it, on the 5th, when all those people attacked the Capitol, the 6th when they attacked the Capitol. But you've got to make a decision. This ain't a game. This is real. We have a job, you know, and we have to get the job done. It's going to get done.
Absolutely.
Make sure, you know, of the seriousness of it.
Absolutely. We should be safe when we handle resistance and build those relationships and look for mutual consensus and listen to others to be timely, announce impending changes quickly, increase engagement by asking questions and inviting people to participate and lend their voice at those public meetings. For those 5 minutes make a difference collectively, and to enhance communication with storytelling by connecting the issues and the topics. There have been quite a few hot topics lately, even in Ferguson Township. I think you guys were talking about the proposed stormwater fees with residential lots and runoff water repairs, the Pine Grove Mills street light conversion. In Patton, I think you guys were reviewing the policy on search warrants and consideration to ban those no-knock warrants. Grays Woods was even talking about land development of 15 single-family constructions and a multifamily 68 unit sort of building, and even the potential for an equine hospital for horse surgeries. I think it's really important to think about the areas that you have a voice, to use your voice and to make a contribution. You may see something that someone else hasn't, and you may also help those who are in office to build mutual respect and to consider outside perspectives. So do participate. As we move in to talking about becoming contributors to make the progress on these tough topics in this very contentious environment and climate we're living in, I would like each of you to provide me with an example of an effective method for building those alliances and getting the necessary work done. And I want you to feel free just to brag a little if you have an example of a notable moment or perhaps a specific contribution that you made while serving in public. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, Shannon.
This is unrelated to my tenure of serving on the Ferguson Township Planning Commission, but I would dare say that it was the genesis, if you will, of my moving forward to what would eventually matriculate or catapult me into the role that I currently, am in on the Ferguson Township Planning Commission. And I say that because I remember in 2012 when Obama was running for his second term. I recall walking into the Democratic headquarters on Allen Street. It wasn't even a Democratic headquarters, it was Organizing for America. That was the umbrella, the name of the campaign. And at that time, understand, I wasn't employed. I had been laid off from the Bank of America call center site out here, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I had recently received my Bachelor of Science degree in communications with an emphasis in organizational communications, and I had no clue. It was like I had applied for jobs all over and wasn't getting any, no fish were biting the line. And I walked into the headquarters and I said, I told him about all of my qualifications and qualities and my 20 some odd years customer service and customer success and administrative professional experience. And I said, what could I do to be of service, to this movement, to this campaign, to this cause? And they told me that they had a need for someone to be a secondary coordinator, a phone banking coordinator. I was like, fine, just point me to the direction that I need to go into and show me what I need to do. I really, really appreciate being able to serve in that role because I was tasked with training, I call them my super seniors, seasoned members of this community who were non-people of color. Okay, there were people who, as we used to say in New Orleans, possibly came from old money, who I had the liberty of training to recruit, to reach out to and make contact with possible constituents and previous voters, or they were scared because they did not have the confidence to have a conversation, and they did not want to feel like they were pushing or imposing their desire on the person on the phone, understanding the tension that exists between Democrats and Republicans, and even people in the middle. Okay, the strategy I used in helping them to feel confident and comfortable was, we are not recruiting people to vote for Obama. We are not recruiting people to vote Democrat. We are not encouraging people to remain Republican. What we are doing is encouraging people, regardless of race, ethnicity, political background, socioeconomic status, we are encouraging people to exercise their rights to have a voice.
Thank you,
And
Shannon.
in that vein, those people became confident and they were ready to make those phone calls. They were willing to talk to people because they understood that they didn't have to choose a side, but that in the middle, the middle where there was empowerment, was where they found their greatest level of confidence. And that is what I would say, that's a strategy that I would definitely encourage anyone who find themselves in a situation where there's inevitable tension. Just walk in empowerment. You don't have to try to, you don't have to. Just be empowered to empower others to be
That's
empowered,
right.
and you'll be
That's
okay.
right. Thank you, Shannon. Yes, Charles, I noticed you had your hand up.
I did it. I unmuted already. See that? Look. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I wanted to mention the thing that I guess if I had to point to something that I have a great deal of pride in, and that is the Martin Luther King Plaza and the process by which that came about. Starting with Peter and putting the name in, and with people like Jesse Barlow and Evan Myers on the borough council, who managed to get that job done. One of the things that we noticed back in the day before the square was that if you walked around this town, there were no Black people anywhere on the walls, no memorials. There was one plaque in front. I don't think the plaque was even there in front of the rec hall where Martin Luther King spoke when he came here. But there was no presence. There was no physical presence, no institutional presence. And so the idea of having that square, which has now become part of who we are as a borough. I mean, everybody has events there, and there are regular events there. So that the presence of not just Martin Luther King's name and the plaques, but us as a people are present here. And I'm very, very proud of that. And I'm very, very thankful for the help of our brothers, Evan and Jesse, who got the job done. A bunch of other people too, but I'm just pointing it out. And Barbara. Can't
Thank
forget
you.
Barbara Farmer. Yeah.
And can't forget Barbara Farmer. Thank you, Charles. Pam or President?
Okay, I'll take it. What I'm most proud of, and I wasn't a board of supervisor, um, I ride the cattle bus. And we found out, well, I found out that they were going to reroute my route. So they were having a public meeting. I attended it and I spoke up. And through speaking to cattle officials, and that the impact that was going to hit disabled veterans, seniors, and our students, they were able to talk about it, and they changed not to change our route. So by speaking up and bringing the issue to their attention, I was able to advocate for the residents who were most vulnerable. And I just want to add, during the COVID crisis, that they have done a great job in providing safe and accessible service to our residents in the community. So I would like to thank CATA for doing an outstanding job for maintaining service for those of us who rely on them.
Thank you, Pam.
And you asked for what we would do as far as contribution and making progress. Most be most aware. Awareness is what the result of availability to all residents within our community. And it shouldn't be in the case of a selected few of information and assets that they have. More diversity in the Center County boards and committees so that these bodies actually reflect what our communities look like. And finally, more affordable housing so that the residents who aren't, that don't have high paying jobs, the highest paying jobs, can actually afford to live in State College. And we need to ensure housing doesn't have the stigma attached to serving the most low income residents and residents of color only. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. President?
Yeah. So briefly, I guess the most important thing that I'm proud of, I guess, that comes to my mind is recently in the stormwater fee discussion at Ferguson Township, I asked for a hardship policy, and that got passed. So that and I pushed for a reasonably substantial allowance. So that's basically 200% of the federal poverty level gets, I think, up to 150% or 200%. They don't have to pay the fee at all. And after that, they get a 50% reduction for up to 250% or so. And thank you, Shannon, for coming and making your voice heard at those meetings. She pointed out a flaw which we could not address, and I'm still looking at it to see if we can do it. And that is, it does not take care of renters. So this fee is for homeowners. And on the one hand, the fee will allow us to make people more environmentally conscious and pave less. On the other hand, it does cause potential to cause rents to go up. So, well, at least we could prevent people from, who don't have income or have lost their jobs and so on, from being charged an extra fee, but we are working on the rental part.
Thank you very much for looking into that further. I would like to remind us that,
Thank
yes,
you.
this is very important for us to build these alliances, to seek out a core working group, to develop general goal statements that people can agree on, to identify and enlist credible partners, to promote mutual benefits, and to develop a strategy and to pitch it to those you need to come alongside of you. So we have a few polls that we wanted to ask really quickly. So as Sharima, if you would bring up the very first polling question, that would be helpful. We're just wanting to know, those of us who are here participating, there are at least 60 of you, you're going to see 3 questions. The first is, have you ever served in local government? I want you to launch and quickly check yes or no. It'll come up and you just quickly, and it'll show us what the responses are as you do it. And the second question is, would you be willing to serve on local government or run for an elected office in the State College area? You can quickly click on yes to either your borough, State College Borough, Ferguson Township, Patton Township, College Township, and you can indicate whether you'd be willing to serve on the school board or no if you're not willing at this time. So I appreciate that. And the third question I would like for you to answer is, are you interested in volunteering on a local authority, board, or commission? These are really important. And we launch that poll. We usually just give it 1 minute to fill. And it looks like we have about 55% of our folks participating right now. They are viewing and answering those questions. 41 out of 57, keep going. We have a couple people. If you can get on there and answer, a couple of seconds, just so that we know we would have the majority of them. Yes. Uh, Anyone who's listening, we have viewers that are outside of the Center County region, and we have viewers outside of State College. Those questions do not apply for you. You have to be local to us in State College Borough, Ferguson Township, Patton Township, College, Harris, in our center region to answer that poll. But we thank you very much. We will also send out a survey following our lovely panel. Thank you, Sharima, for running the poll. We are about to end the poll. If you could take a snapshot of that for us. It looks like 45 out of 60 people have voted. We have now closed. We're going to share those results. Hopefully you can see them. It says 44% of those viewing have served in local government. I think that's a phenomenal record for our participants today. It also notes that we have several people who would be willing to serve on local government. That's exciting. Think about that. We've got 8 who said yes for State College, 6 who said yes for Ferguson, 2 for Patton, 2 for Township for College. Excellent. We even have one worthy person who's thinking they will run for school board. So thank you so much for giving us those insights. And finally, the third one, we are seeking 62% of our viewers today have agreed that they would volunteer for an authority, board, or commission. Thank you so much for taking our poll today. We're going to put that off and we're going to continue to wrap up. We have a brief couple of minutes. I just wanted to share some good news because you've had such fabulous and encouraging responses to those 3 questions. Currently, State College Borough Council will have 3 open seats and the position of mayor coming up. Patton Township will have 2 open seats, Ferguson Township will have 2, Benner Township will have 2, College Township will have 2, Half Moon Township and Harris Township will also have 2 seats each, and Bellefonte has 5 seats coming available. And we look forward to you thinking about it. And a brief insight for you. Basic qualifications and requirements to be candidates for public office. 1-year residency. You need to register to vote and you need to be a voter. You also need 10 signatures for each of the parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, on your nomination petition. Paperwork to become a candidate for any office begins February 16th, and you can pick up those packets all the way through March 19th. Additional information on how to run for office can be found online at centercountyvotes.com. And if you're interested in the State College Area School District, the school board, a school board helps to determine educational policy, administrative procedures for the school district. They also provide oversight, governance, in developing a system of accountability. Presently, our SCASD has 9 members on its board, and they serve a 4-year term in office. They only meet about twice a month, but there are 4 seats coming up open, and we look forward to that one person online who's viewing today who said they're willing to run. We're willing to get you the information and to support you. Finally, volunteering for authority boards and commissions. They offer citizens an opportunity to participate in governmental affairs, and their activities help to shape and influence public policy. So members of those commissions, boards, and authorities make recommendations on a wide range of topics. At the county level, you can apply to be appointed and share your interests, volunteer experience, special skills, and you can reference any references. The terms vary, so you can be on one for 1 year or one on for 5 years. And the county also publishes a current list of members on their website, and you can reach out and hear about their experiences and tasks even before you run for office. There are even retired seniors who can serve. Locally in our state college borough level in municipalities, they also offer ABCs, and they accept applications year-round. You can click on and apply now. Applications are held on file until their vacancies are filled or until the end of each year when new appointments are made by the Borough Council. Currently, there are 150 volunteers throughout the borough and 20 different authority boards and commissions that you can apply for. And you can find that information on statecollegepa.us. Well, if you say that you have some reservations about participating, even after our brilliant panelists have shared, research says time, commitment, and a lack of attention toward local news and a lack of trust are the barriers to civil engagement, especially for people of color. But you can bring your personal passions, your family and friends, and together we can change this. So look up current members, reach out to any of our panelists, find a friend or a neighbor, and do it together. So I'm going to head back to our panelists. We're going to take down that slide really quickly. And I just want each one of the panelists to quickly just share a burst of inspiration, perhaps a tip, one way the community might support you and local government. Who wants to go first?
I guess I'll go first. Um, Support your local government. To get engaged with your public officials, we need to know what your needs and concerns are. We need to address things that we don't know about. But if you don't let us know by communicating to us through meetings, through avenues of communications, and perhaps being more engaged, you can take interest in serving public office at some point, just as I did. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Prasenjit.
Yes, I would say, Pam already said what I would have said. So I would say, um, educate yourself about the local issues. They are issues that can affect a lot of us in a big way. And since I have people here who are already interested, maybe promise to talk about these things to 5 of your neighbors or friends about the issues that our community is facing. All of you might not be as good speakers as Leslie is, but try to convince them that it's, and the rest of my panelists are, I don't want to leave them aside, but try to convince them that these are things that really matter.
Thank you. Shannon, any last tip?
Yes, do not be afraid to take that step and get involved. Your presence matter and your voice matter. And in many cases, your voice can have a further reach than your presence, if you will. As in many cases, your voice actually can be your presence. So be empowered to empower, be inspired to inspire.
Thank you, Shannon. Charles.
Yeah, being an old guy in the historical figure, I can say a couple of things. These are unique times. Uh, we have never, in my life, when I'm 75, we've never been in circumstances like this, a pandemic, a worldwide movement for social justice, an economic situation that's worse than since the Depression, an environment that is right on the teeter-tottering on the edge if we don't solve it, we're all going to be in trouble all around the world. So we've never had all those things sort of come together. Uh, and at the same time, we're trying to talk about participating in local government, participating in your community. And all of those things I'm going to say are connected. And so I'm going to say, don't get confused, be of good courage, and and just participate, and don't forget the ancestors, don't forget the children, and don't forget each other.
Absolutely. Thank you. Indeed, our public servants, such as our panelists, cultivate a sense of duty. They are ethical, they're trustworthy, and they serve by example. And we call on you to bring your talents, your ability, your sense of responsibility, and to take pride in making a difference. So get involved, and you can gain experience by volunteering, develop or use your knowledge and your skills, lend your voice to cultivate a positive change, and improve the conditions that will influence the health and well-being of our community. Become the change you wish to see and be a contributor and make your community a better place to live, work, and enjoy. Representation matters. It helps to strengthen our communities, improve student outcomes in elementary, middle schools, high schools. Representation means that teachers and principals and other leaders and elected officials reflect our demographics in the student body, in the school, and for those communities in which we live and serve. Together, using our spheres of influence, we can bring about change and transformation that we seek through conversation and civic engagement. We thank each of our fabulous panelists for their service and for their participation today, and we hope that the program inspires you all who are watching and attending to follow your passion and take action. We hope that you will share the recording today, and we would be remiss if I didn't stop right now to acknowledge the recent appointment of our co-host, Sharima Young. She was appointed to the Pennsylvania State Law Enforcement Citizens Advisory Commission, and their goal is to improve policing practices within law enforcement agencies under Governor Wolf's jurisdiction. So Sharima, we thank you in advance for all of your contributions toward a more just and inclusive community and for representing the Center region.